Pam not here either?
I believe she was here. She must have went out for a moment.
I think Tom's back.
Tom Chapa,
I'm here. Thank you.
Lisa Glidden,
Here.
James McKenzie,
Here?
Linda Serino,
Here.
Kathleen Allen,
And Pam just sent me a text saying she lost internet connection, but she'll be back. So
okay. I can log her in when she comes back on. And I believe I saw Kathleen Allen.
Here, sorry, I was having problems logging on. I had the wrong link apparently.
That's okay. And Pamela Dowd. I believe I saw her log back on.
Yep, I'm here, but I'm back here. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
group's here, yay.
And Zeta Olson, please.
Here.
At this time, the superintendent would like to move to executive session for the purpose to discuss matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session. Please use the executive session link that I did, or invite that I sent you. motion to return to regular session?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the floor to the public. Public session of the board meeting. It is expected that speakers will conduct themselves in a civil manner and will be ruled out of order for any statement that constitutes a direct threat against officers, employees, or students of the school district or that are obscene. No personal attacks will be tolerated, nor should any speaker address specific district personnel or students by name or suggestions. Questions or comments concerning matters that are not on the agenda will be taken under consideration and referred to the superintendent for appropriate action. Members of the community may comment on any matter related to district business. The board president may request a brief description of the topic the speaker plans to address. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Presentation should be brief as possible, and no speaker will be permitted to speak for longer than 3 minutes. I do have some submissions of questions and concerns. If it's okay with the board, I would like to read those to you. First one is Trinity Engel, 241 East 7th Street. What is the reopening plan for the schools? How can our public school remain closed while private and religious schools have been providing in-person education for 5 full days a week in Oswego? The high school and the middle school kids should at least be given the opportunity for in-person instruction 1 day a week. Also, it does not follow science at all to not allow kids to take out library books. To encourage kids who are spending hours online already to spend more time reading books online is aberrant and not at all healthy. They need to be provided education in other ways beyond entirely virtual. What are you giving the kids is not enough and isn't fair, or just to provide public education that is so subpar to the private schooling provided in our own city within the same district. Would you like me to continue? Okay. Next one, Amy Callan, 3239 State Route 48. Why do board meetings continually get scheduled at 5 p.m. when it is nearly impossible for most people to attend at this time? Why do you not have a contact us information page on the website so community members know how to best contact the board? Contacting you should be easy for everyone. Knowing that many community members disagree with your vote to eliminate parents' choice to watch home games, would you please, those who voted no, reconsider your decision? Next is Sean Callan, 3239 State Route 48, Oswego. Could you please confirm how many student athletes are using the transportation provided to get the practices for the approval fall varsity sports, boys, girls soccer, girls tennis, boys golf, cross country? Could you please share the anticipated percentage to plan of the budgeted amount at the end of the fall sports season, factoring in all sports that didn't happen, as well as confirmed real expenses for the varsity sports that are now happening? Thank you. Kara Murray, 60 West 6th Street. As it stands, all teachers and staff our family has encountered have gone above and beyond given the circumstances. When will the district reevaluate the current hybrid plan? Could you please look to Fulton School District for some direction as far as going to 4 or 5 days in-person instruction days? Could the middle and high school students please get some in-person instruction? Could we please have some transparency and a concrete plan of action? Charity King, 18 Ole Avenue. More of a comment than a question, just wanted to commend our teachers, both our children, grade 6 and 8, are having wonderful virtual experiences. All teachers have been amazing, clear on instruction and engaging. Plenty of work given and a lot of interaction. I'm beyond impressed with their organization and commitment to their students. Keep up the good work. Is there a way we can recognize our teachers? Would love suggestions. Thank you. Eliza St. Ange, 140 West Van Buren Street. Wednesdays. Workload is out of control for some high school students. My students are so stressed out on Wednesdays trying to get all her work for each class done by 2:30, but some teachers are given so much. Today, we didn't even get to eat until 2:30. I assumed it would be each class would be given 30 minutes of at-home work on Wednesdays from 9 to 2:30. Anything over that should be homework to do in the evening. What are the guidelines? Is this only for honor students and AP students? The heavy Wednesday workloads. She also comments, are we planning stages of getting elementary kids in school 4 days a week next quarter? Jennifer Ruggio, 69 Erie Street. When will middle schoolers have the option to return to school in a hybrid model? Eric Sorrell, 139 City Line Road. When exactly is the district planning to move to sending more students back to school? What data are you using to keep the 7-12 grade students at home? What date is the goal to have the secondary students back in person? We have buildings sitting vacant and secondary children at home all day struggling. Children of all ages need social interaction and need, at a minimum, a hybrid school setting. Amy Chaplin, 179 Ellen Street. I would like to hear about the time frame and qualifications for our students to get back to school. Being on a device all day and doing homework also on the device is too much, among other things. Our students are able to wear masks and social distance. Thank you. Becky Waters, 14 West 4th Street. Where does the district stand with implementing hybrid option for middle school and high school? Have you looked at the barriers that were originally in place to prevent this model from being an option and reevaluating now that the elementary schools have opened? Can we consolidate bus runs to adjust for students who are not using transportation at the elementary level? Have we learned any new efficiencies in managing the protocols? Is there a task force that is looking at this? And when will they be meeting again? I believe the public should be notified regarding any such meetings and what information and data is being used to make these decisions. Sarah Nelson, 11 West 4th Street. Will the children be able to use backpacks as the weather gets colder? We cannot expect these small children to carry lunches, water bottles, and sneakers onto the bus and into the classrooms without some sort of aid while all bundled up. Can they leave their backpacks outside in the hallways where they will be leaving their boots anyways? Tyler Dean, 20 Sunrise Drive. This online school is a horrible idea and even worse execution. Why can the younger kids go back to school and middle school and high school students can't? Older students need to be in school even if it's 2 days a week. We have more complex work than can be discussed, taught over Zoom, calls it too much. You can't ask question properly with the teachers. Teachers can't properly have social interactions with the people our age properly. We can't do any of this behind the screen. Benjamin Miller, 3960 County Route 4. What are the results of the Oswego City School District Parent and Guardian Distance Learning Survey that was distributed on July 17, 2020 by Dr. Dean Bui? Specifically, what are the statistics of the 712 parental responses that necessitated all virtual reopening for 712? How are comparable sized school districts within central New York, for example, Fulton, Jamesville, Auburn, East Syracuse, Manoa, West Genesee, Westboro, and Watertown City, able to implement a hybrid plan for in-person schooling for 712, and Oswego has no plan to do so. Benjamin Miller, 3960 County Route 4. In a recent letter to the district superintendent, Dr. Mathis Calvin III cited high numbers of staff and students that are presenting symptoms of being placed into quarantine. As of October 16th, there are 47 total number of positive cases and 165 total of people in mandatory isolation and quarantine within the entire county. Oswego County has an approximate population of 17,000 residents, which clearly calculates those cases as less than 1/10 or 1% and less of 1/5 of 1% of the population, respectively. Why is the school district reporting high numbers with respect to the district's cases when the county department numbers are not reflecting this alleged trend? The stakeholders deserve to know exact numbers that the district is using to drive their decisions or further decisions. What is the time frame to reevaluate the current reopening model for 712 and develop a hybrid model based on changing health metrics? And that's all the responses or correspondence. Would you like me to move on to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much for doing that, Karen. You probably need a glass of water now, but at least we know the portal works.
It does work. Next on the agenda, I will turn it over to Dr. Calvin for the superintendent's report. Dr. Calvin, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. Good evening, board. Good to see everybody back tonight. I want to say hello to all who are on with us tonight. And my hope is that as we kind of go through our presentation, that I heard some of the different statements tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of the questions that some of the folks in our community have asked through this presentation. I think we might be able to. So first, just in terms of, go ahead, Matt, to the next screen there. We want to continue to thank all the folks who've been working with us, our staff, our community, our parents who've been very patient. Let me say that our schools are continuing to operate as safely as we possibly can. We just this past week were able to host a number of multiple virtual open houses. I want to thank all of our staff for being very creative and going on and finding ways to make sure that we are connecting with our families. We also again, want to thank folks for just being creative and just pulling together to make sure that those virtual open houses went so smoothly. We continue to work on any concerns as they arise. Anything that we hear that are concerns, our goal is to try to really resolve them as quickly as we possibly can. To do so, I would like to, again, continue to ask our community to work with us by, certainly using that protocol that we put out last week, 2 weeks ago rather, to help us with resolving concerns. As soon as there is an issue, we ask that you just reach out to those folks that are listed on that protocol list, and let us try to work right through the problem with you. And our goal is to respond as soon as we possibly can. I would also like to thank folks again for their patience. Now, we had some questions tonight about target times to try to get folks back. So the plan that we have that's posted and that we've worked a lot on is our reopening plan. We want folks to know that we are certainly continuing to look at and evaluate how we might be able to bring our other students from our student body back. At this time, what we're trying to work on is seeing if we can get, our middle school kiddos back in somewhere around January, and then in the second quarter or semester of the year, our high school kids. We are, let me just say loud and clear, we truly would like to have as many kids back here in school as we possibly can. That is our goal, and that is what we've been working towards. Unfortunately, a lot of what we've been coming up against has to do with this pandemic. So, with that said, our target times, you kind of see them there, but I want to just be clear, all of those target times, both of those target times are really dependent upon what happens in the community with respect to COVID-19. Now, I will share with you, actually, just before this meeting began, a letter came to me and came to all of the superintendents from the Oswego County Public Health Director. And just quickly, just to read a brief amount from it, it says, this is from the Public Health Director, that just today, there were 4 additional residents who have tested COVID-19 positive, bringing the total number of cases, they've risen up to 737 in Oswego County. 3 of the 4 confirmed COVID-19 cases have resulted, unfortunately, in folks passing away. The health director also says, we have seen a trend of new cases in small clusters of families, households, and groups. We are also seeing a recent trend of the virus spreading in many towns that aren't related to the college population. We must remain cautious about COVID-19 and also diligent in practicing prevention measures such as frequent hand washing, face masking, social distancing, and these practices will hopefully help us prevent infections from the seasonal flu that is forthcoming, basically. And that report came out to us. I just received it 10 minutes before our board meeting. So I want to say to the public, I hear you loud and clear, right? We know that many from our public would like to have students back in person. And then we have some who prefer to do things remotely right now. As soon as we can get kids back, that is our goal. But it certainly is conditioned upon what happens with respect to this virus. And we're really working through it and really trying to do our best. We will continue to update the community and the public on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how quickly we may be able to return our students. So we will be back in touch with our public and continue to let them know what we're doing. I'll be back at the next couple of board meetings, and I will certainly share more outcomes and more information about that. Go ahead, Matt. I wanted to also, just switching gears for just a moment, just share with the board, in terms of our entry planning update, we continue to meet with stakeholders. This week, earlier this week, we met with bus drivers. Coming soon, I will be meeting with the custodial staff. We will have some parent meetings. Actually, I have a big parent meeting coming up tomorrow with our home and school folks. All of our instructional staff, I'm now planning meetings to meet with all of the teachers, teacher assistants, and aides. And then we'll continue to meet with community stakeholders and legislators. To date, we've had nearly over 70 meetings with folks from our community, and we're going to continue to meet with folks to learn as much as we can. And in November, I'll be back, board, to share with you all what I've learned from the community. So I just wanted to keep you abreast of that. Okay, go ahead, Matt. Just talking a little bit about athletics for a quick moment. Just wanted to share with the board that as we continue to move forward in this fall season, I just wanted to be clear that at this time what we're doing is varsity sports. We've had some questions about modified sports, even JV, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we are doing right now varsity sports. I think some people may not have understood from some of our meetings, so I just wanted to be clear on that. There's been some questions about modified sports, particularly basketball and volleyball. Are they going to be happening right away? Normally they would happen around this time frame. And I've shared with some from our community that they are actually considered high-risk sports. And New York State Athletics Association is not even recommending that we do those two sports at this time. So I just want to make sure people understand that. And please know that we'll continue to talk with the community as well about what we will be offering and providing in terms of athletics. We thank the community, by the way, for their patience and their continued support of our athletic program and our students as we continue to move forward. Any questions at all, board, about those two high risk sports particularly? We good? Okay, go right ahead. Now, I heard some comments tonight about the recent communication that we sent out to the community. And I sent that out last week, Friday. That communication went out to the public. And really the purpose of the communication is to ask our community to kind of prepare in case we start to have additional challenges around COVID-19. We as a district have been experiencing some challenges, like many districts across the state of New York. In many of the newspapers that we read every day, there's a lot of challenges that have been occurring. And I wanted to be very upfront and honest with our community in case we have to go to any kind of a backup plan. The backup plan, if we are unable to provide in-person support, whether it's for a day, a week, more than a week, that backup plan, we just wanted to remind people that according to our reopening plan, the backup plan is for everyone to go all remote. Now, just so folks understand, I had a call or so, 2 calls, and people asked, is there anything happening in the district? Some people have not been aware of and following some of the things that have been going along. We have had some challenges, like most districts. So just for example, we have had 3 COVID exposures already to date, right? We are seeing numerous staff outings. So since we began the school year, we have actually had nearly 80 staff members who have had to either self-quarantine or been put into quarantine by the health department. We've had almost close to nearly 300 students. I believe the number is 273 students as of today since we started who had to either quarantine or who were placed into a quarantine. That's a lot of folks. And keep in mind, we didn't start in-person instruction until September 21st. So it hasn't even been a month. And we've had some challenges that have come our way. And when you have that amount of staff that are out since we started, it causes real challenges to the day-to-day operation. Just a week ago, for example, we had about 7 bus drivers, if I remember correctly, Nancy, if that number is right. 7 drivers were out on one time, whether they had a symptom or something that was consistent. We have to follow the state's guidance. For whatever reason, those folks were placed into quarantine. They had to go into quarantine until they could get a hold of their doctors. That caused us some real challenges because we had to actually figure out how could we combine routes, we had to maintain the social distancing, and just operating and moving forward in that way, we were able to do it and we did very well. But had that number increased even more, that would certainly cause us concerns. Just today alone, we now have, as of today, just this week, it's Tuesday, 7 staff members on quarantine and pending test results. And we have 13 students that are, as of Tuesday today, that are having challenges. So, those numbers continue to grow and we are certainly presented with challenges. With that said, we're doing everything that we can, and we will continue to do everything that we can to continue our programs. I've had people ask me some questions also about, what's the threshold for when you do need to close one of your schools, and when you close everybody if there's a problem. And I've shared with folks, each situation is dependent upon what's actually happening and what is a part of the situation. So for example, if we have one school that might have a COVID exposure, we might not pretty much likely have to close the other, 3 or 4 or 5 schools, right? It may be just dependent upon that one school. It really depends upon the particulars that are involved. It depends on the bus that kids came in. It depends on, how much people were connected to other people. So we have staff who work between multiple buildings. So it really depends upon a number of items when we start to think about closures of schools. We'd like to prevent closures wherever we possibly can. But with that said, if we get to a point where we really cannot operate, or there's some real health risks or some concerns that have come up because of COVID-19, what we're asking the community to do is to be proactive and to work with us, as they've been doing, and just make sure that there's a backup plan in place, because we want to make sure that people know what that plan is, and we want things to go as smooth as we possibly can. Our goal, by the way, of that communication was to inform our community of this concern that we're facing, to communicate again our emergency plan, and to encourage again a backup plan. And again, we want to keep the schools open, and we will continue to provide updates as much as we possibly can. We had some people say, well, does this mean that we're all closing tomorrow? It does not mean that. What we're going to do is really look closely at how things are going, and we're going to take it one day at a time. So please, we just ask folks to understand that and know that we will continue to communicate as we kind of move forward, basically. Any questions at all from the board about that before I move on? Any comments or questions?
I just think oh, sorry, Kathleen, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Heather.
Well, it's very important to note, I think, that the the contact tracing, the quarantining,
Yes.
all of those processes are actually imposed upon us. They are not, things that we are just deciding to do out of caution. They really are procedures that are imposed upon us. So we have to, every single case involves a lot of work. So I just think it's important for the public to understand that. It isn't easy even dealing with one, much less multiple cases of COVID or even potential COVID.
Yes. And the health department also has a big say in what happens as well, too, with school closures. Depending upon what the exposure is like, there is an outside entity that we have to really work with and follow through with as well, right? Thank you. Kathleen, I think, did you have a question or something?
Yeah, so you said we had over 200 that were quarantined, whether it was students and staff, correct?
Yes, since the beginning of the year.
How many of over 200 ended up being positive? Because, just looking where we live, I have 3 acres of goldenrod in my backyard. We wake up and our throats are scratchy and,
right.
You may have a little cough and a little postnasal drip. This is Oswego. This is upstate New York. And I guess I understand completely these people that are asking, why aren't our high school, that's what I've been saying right along is I'm concerned with the safety and mental health of these students. And I'm concerned that these kids are not getting what they need just being cooped up at home. I know personally I'm experiencing that, and I have friends that are experiencing that with their kids. They need to be with people. They need to be with their teachers. The online isn't as effective, obviously, as in person. And I mean, to look at that and say January, that's, to me, it's very disheartening and disappointing.
I hear you, Kathleen. I understand. I think a couple of things, just to unpack a little bit. So your first question of how many were positive. So we know of at least 3 exposures that were definitely positive. Some of the children that this concerns, or some of our staff, so we can't force people to go and test themselves, nor can the health department. So some people get tested, some people don't. What those results are, if there's an exposure, they'll certainly let us know. But there is new regulation that's out there, unfortunately, which we didn't make, as I know you're aware, that says whenever any of these symptoms come, people have these symptoms, or they come to school with the symptoms, or before they come to school, they demonstrate a symptom, they can't come in. They have to be at home. They have to actually have a test. The symptom has to actually have cleared up, a COVID-19 test, that is. They have to have the symptom cleared before they can even come back, because we know now, based on the information we've received, that a number of those symptoms actually have to do with that COVID-19 exposure. So, I hear you, but we're trying our best to follow the guidance. And so when that guidance comes, we don't have a choice. We have to follow it. And it's resulted in, again, high numbers of staff, high numbers of students out. Now, the second part of what you said, you okay?
Well, no, it's just, Oswego County Health Department, that's who you're taking your advice from. But that's also, Hannibal and Fulton, and they are in person. Central Square's in person. It's all the same county. So why are we being so different?
So actually in the county, so we do have districts that have in-person instruction for 7 through 12 and K through 6, right? K through 6, and some have it full K through 12. But there is a variety. And I think there's a variety because different districts have different things going on. Some are larger than others. Some are smaller than others. Some are concerned about many of the same things that we are concerned with. So currently, for example, we have 4 districts in our county that do not have in-person instruction for grades 7 through 12. So we're one of the 4. Hannibal, which you mentioned, is the second one that does not have 7 through 12. I just spoke to the superintendent today. He does not have that in place. Central Square does not have 7 through 12 in place, nor does Phoenix. None of them do. Some of the others do have 7 through 12 in place. And again, it depends on numbers, size, and also for us, one of the biggest concerns as to why we were really concerned was all of the sanitation. As when we were doing our reopening plan, I talked a lot about the sanitation needs, really keeping up with the health and safety. So when a student leaves a room and goes to another room, all of those desks, all of those areas, those touch points have to be wiped down, because things we know are on hands, things get transferred when people are sitting in areas. So we have 1,100 plus kids that would be moving around all at the same time, causing real health and safety concerns. And so because of that, we restarted a little bit smaller with just our elementary students. And then our goal is to grow that out one step at a time. Now, I hear you. I'm also a parent too. I would like to have as many kids, as I said before, here in school, in person, as quickly as we can. And we're committed to doing that. But we're really trying to be really safe. We're trying to really do things in a sound way. And it does take time, and again, we're not alone. I just listed for you 3 other districts, 2 of which that you named, that are doing the same exact things we are. And they're doing it some of them for the same exact reasons that we are, because they also have the same concerns that we have. And if you go across throughout not only this county, but in other counties, you will find that there are other districts that also have that. So there's a balance depending on what district you're in terms of what people are doing.
But if you also just look at the numbers, the Oswego County Health Department sends you a letter saying, we've had 700 cases positive. There's 120,000 people in Oswego County, and that's 700 positive cases, not current. That's 700 positive cases over the last 8 months. So I don't know. Well, I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated because I know that my personal experience is that the mental health of students that I know is not good right now. And it's because there's no social interaction and it's taking its toll on people.
I think we're all frustrated. I know that the staff that I'm working with every day is doing the very best that they can. I can tell you that the staff are really challenged right now, but they're working hard at it. And I think that they are all committed, including myself, as I said before. Whatever we can do to try to get kids back in, that's our goal. But because of this pandemic, we're all challenged. I don't know what else to say except for we hear your frustration and we all are frustrated. It's unfortunately, a situation that is challenging us all. Jim, I see your hand. I think I saw Lisa too.
No, ladies first.
Okay. Mathis, I actually have two questions. So one is, I think one of the things that's making it harder for us and get the high numbers of people having to go into quarantine or be tested is that we are requiring people who present a symptom that they automatically have to go be tested or go into quarantine. But there is some guidance that says that if it's a new symptom, right? So to go back to Kathleen's point about it's allergy season or weather changes and sinuses. And so I think that might help, that may actually decrease the number of people who are putting themselves into quarantine or who don't want to go get a COVID test because they know it's just allergies or they know it's just a sinus headache.
No, I think maybe understanding the guidance, Lisa, misunderstanding the guidance. It's not just if it's a new symptom. If you come with a cough or, if you have, runny nose or diarrhea or you've got, a fever, if any of those things present, right? And if you have something new on top of that, anytime those symptoms occur, you have to go into quarantine and you're asked by the state's guidance to actually go and do a COVID-19 test. If there is, one of the things that has helped though, Lisa, is that if your doctor now gives you information, and Heidi, you can certainly help me out on this. I believe you can help me with this. But if your doctor now gives you information that says, hey, this is like a person who has a chronic sinus issue, people can get back to school a little bit earlier, basically. But if you come anytime with any symptom that's on the list, you can't come into school. You have to stop. I hope that helps, Lisa.
And Samantha,
Part of the problem is that I think our doctor's office, so like my son was one of the kids who was sent home, right? He has a chronic sinus issue. And we went and he got a COVID test and I don't know yet if the doctor's office sent a letter, but when I called the doctor's office about it, she was like completely frazzled and said that their offices are in chaos because there are so many kids who have to, be tested. I do have to say, going down to the Oswego Health Urgent Care in Fulton was an incredibly easy, fast process. And my son is 8, but he took that test fine. So it's, but okay, I will look into that part about the guidance. But my second question actually has to do with busing, because I know that are we still having the issue where a lot of our bus drivers are absent? Because I know that there have been some problems with bus runs.
Right. So as I said, in the last week, we had some challenges, right? I'm not sure about where we're at as of today, but I know the last week, and Nancy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Heidi, there were 7 people that were out at one time, and so there was a challenge. We worked through it. We were able to do it that time with no problem. So how things will go in the future, I'm not sure. Winter is upon us. And again, what happens with winter, what happens with symptoms, I'm not sure. But last week, we did have a challenge with the busing. Now, today, as of Tuesday, I'm not sure if we have many issues with that. Heidi or Nancy?
Today was better. Every morning, Tom Gunn looks at the staffing and looks at the needs and combines runs on the spot if he has to. So we have done that. Our sub bus drivers are few and far between. So we didn't have a lot of people come back due to COVID. But other than that, the transportation department is doing a wonderful job adapting to each and every day.
yeah, and we currently have 1 driver and 1 monitor out. And we have an ongoing spreadsheet that we share this information so that Dr. Calvin and Christina Chamberlain and Dr. Duffy, we can all collaborate on those needs that the district has.
And just so people are aware also, one of our concerns right now that we're facing is also trying to get subs to cover, whether it's in a classroom or whether it's on a bus or, because of the pandemic, it's caused a challenge with trying to secure subs even more than what we've had in the past, right? So might there be additional issues that come up? There might. We are seeing and hearing people who are just saying, I don't want to come in right now just because of the pandemic, right? And again, by the way, that's not just a Oswego issue. That's an issue really that a lot of districts are facing right now. Jim, I think you had a question there. I'm sorry, I didn't want to pass over you.
So I honestly have more of a comment, starting with thank you to Dr. Calvin for sending that email on Friday. I think it was an important email, not only because it got a dialogue going in our community, which it certainly has, if you just listen to some of the comments in our public forum. It got a good dialogue going, but more importantly, I think it gave a heads up to people just in case, and I think that was one of the more important aspects of why you did that. And I'm glad that you did, because I think we need to understand that there are resource issues. Part of it's money, but people are also one of the biggest resources you can't backfill. If this were not an economic depression and you had all the money in the world, you could maybe hire more people. But if people are not available or are available, but then they cannot come to work because they've been quarantined, that becomes a different issue. So I do think it's important. If our faculty and staff get quarantined, it's not because of something that we did. It's because there are county mandates based on that, right? We don't control that. So if you're looking at a resource issue, you always have to understand what the data means. And I have talked with a lot of people and heard from people who have talked about there's only 41 cases. There's 117,000 people in the county. Well, what you really need to look at is what is the data in the city of Oswego district, right? Everybody else, that's them. So if you look at county numbers, that's one thing. You really need to look at Oswego numbers. But even at the same time, the reason why you sent the email is not because of necessarily only positive numbers. It's because of those being quarantined, those who are not allowed to go to work until something is resolved, right? And so since we need that work, if there becomes a critical number of people who can't go to work because the county's told them to stay at home, that's something we need to deal with. So I think it's important that people understand that specific aspect, that it's not just the number of positive cases, it's the number of employees who are being told you can't go to work. And how do we safely and appropriately run in-person instruction with a certain amount of people? So,
Jim, if anybody's been listening to the news every single day, they're predicting we're going into some very difficult times with this pandemic through the holidays. And I'll tell you right now, as a board member, this has been hard. I've got grandchildren dealing with it. But I don't want to lose not one child of ours because we just got overwhelmed with what's going on here. I think we have to follow the guidelines and we have to listen to what the scientists are telling us.
You're muted, Mathis.
Okay. All right. So, I just want to, again, share with the community, our goal is to do everything that we can to really work through this challenging time. We all want our kids back. I know that I do. Every day, we're trying to figure out what can we do next? How can we make things better? And with that said, I want to thank our community for being patient. I want to thank people who do reach out to us and share their challenges and their concerns and their frustrations. And please know that our goal is to constantly respond. And we're trying to do everything we can to make things better wherever we possibly can. And I would like to thank our staff also for all of their hard work. It hasn't been easy. We haven't even been here for a month. And I can tell you that every day our staff are giving it 120%. I mean, I go into the classrooms, I'm watching them online with our kids, I'm watching them in person with our students, and they're really working really hard, and I want to thank them. And our community, please know, we hear you loud and clear, and as soon as we can get things back to normal, that's our goal, right? All right.
Mathis, can I just ask a quick question? Because Kathleen does bring up a good point, and I know we all respect the point of mental well-being and emotional health of our students, especially the middle school and high schoolers. If you have a student that is dealing with depression and anxiety because of this situation, do we have a safeguard or some kind of a mechanism that we can enact to help with that?
Absolutely. So parents at any time can reach out to our schools. We have counselors, we've got social workers, we have folks that we actually contract with that can help us with help you with your child who might be having or experiencing some mental health issues. We also have a number of our folks, especially at our elementary level right now, who are doing social and emotional lessons throughout the week. I know that they on Wednesday mornings go on to a number of classrooms and they actually do what's called a social and emotional lesson and touch-in with kiddos. And we have staff members who are actually throughout the week, specifically time, their goal is to focus on targeting and really connecting with those kids who may be having some real challenges. So if parents or community members have a child at home who really needs some extra help, reach out to us and we will respond right away to get those that help that's needed and support into place. We will really work on it. If you don't get any support at that building level, reach out to the executive coordinator or director, or you can reach out to me and we'll get those supports into place. Kathleen, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I talked to a parent today about that situation, that she's having a very difficult time with her child at the high school level. And she has reached out multiple times and it's not, and nothing's happening.
Well, this is the first time I've heard.
Part of the frustration is that this is out there, and I referred her to the chart that's on the website now that we went over, the communication chart. But in the meantime, you're talking about a child that's running away from home because they're not. This isn't doing. It's. He's just at they're at their wit's end. So
this is the first time.
I don't know what needs to happen, but something needs to happen that's a little more effective than this. I guess that's what I'm saying, because this is.
So Kathleen, may I say something? This is the first time I've heard of this. I've never heard of this before. Had I would have heard of this, I promise you that I would have responded right away. So after the meeting, if you can tell me who that child is and that parent is, I can assure you that we will personally reach out to make sure that something gets done. So here's the thing: if parents are not getting the response that they need at the building level, right? Please, I ask them to accelerate it to the next person up. If it's at the high school, that would be Mrs. Sweeney. If it's at Mrs. Plass, or you can call me directly. And I do take parent calls. I do. If I'm not able to right away respond, I'll get somebody on it immediately. I promise you that I will respond. But this is the first time I've heard that. But I can promise you this much.
I think we lost you.
I missed the promise.
It's 6 o'clock. Is that the time that changes?
Yes, I think it's computer shut down.
Is that?
Yeah, we had a little pop-up button a second ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably got to log back in.
I know. But that was perfect timing. I could probably.
Waiting to work on the smile at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, there's two.
Okay, we have a. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, board, but we have a shutdown that happens on our computers at certain hours of the day, and so mine's just kind of went through that shutdown. As I was saying, I promise you, if you let me know who's got what going on, we will respond right away. I'll do my very best to make sure that I respond. And I see my face is frozen on the other screen. I'm so sorry.
It was perfect timing.
I don't know where that's coming from, but we will. Okay, I think it's down now. We will respond. So please know, Kathleen, I will respond to that concern and any other concern that board members hear about. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. Can we go on to the next slide, Matt? Thank you. All right. Just to share with the board, Speak of the health and safety concerns. There is some additional information out there that board members should know that could affect us, right? So just a week ago, the governor and the New York State Health Department put forth a new initiative. That initiative was around concerns with clusters, because across the state, there have been some concerns around COVID-19 clusters. The focus right now is in the New York City area. However, that model has been shared across the state. Superintendents received information around this cluster just last week from the state. The initiative is composed of 3 steps: taking dramatic action within the cluster, taking action in the area surrounding the cluster to stop the spread, and then taking precautionary actions in the outlying communities. With respect to guidance, the state has said that, depending on clusters that are growing, that they would now move to a system where they're going to rate zones red, orange, and yellow if there are concerns around COVID-19 clusters. One of the things that they've also said, is that right now it looks like they're going to start this in New York City. We don't know if it will come to us or not, this guidance system, but what we've been told is that, it could, right? Why? Because we have a college that's very close to us. And if there are cluster concerns, then certainly this system would affect us. By the way, in this guidance that just came out, what we learned is that if there are mass gatherings, which are in violation of the state public health rules, they have also increased the fines for mass gatherings from where they were before. I believe they were around 2,000. Now they're up to 15,000 if there is a mass gathering that occurs. And the governor is basically, again, he's concerned about the raise in the cases of COVID-19. And so this guidance came out to all schools. Go ahead, Matt. And here's kind of what they have said. So, by the way, this guidance deals with churches, it deals with mass gatherings, businesses, dining, and also schools. If our district ever becomes what's called a red zone, which is a cluster itself, what would happen is that the governor would immediately enact some new rules, some of which is that, our businesses and would go, only essential businesses would be left open, mass gatherings would be prohibited, dining would be takeout only, but schools would be closed and all schools would have to go remote only. If we end up going into the orange zone, the warning zone, basically what happens is mass gatherings can only be at 10 maximum. Businesses would be basically closing high-risk non-essential businesses such as gyms and personal care. And then dining again goes only 4 persons maximum. And then schools would be closed and having to go remote only as well in that orange zone. If you are classified as having a yellow zone, you can have 25 people maximum with gatherings. Schools would be open with mandatory weekly testing of students and teachers and staff for in-person settings. Particularly what has to happen is if you're designated as a yellow zone, 20% of your staff and students every week would actually have to be tested. The district would have to basically find a way to make sure that everybody gets tested. And it would be a random kind of list, and it would be 20% every single week that would have to be tested. Now, when we heard this about these zones, superintendents from across the state were like, we didn't know where this was coming from. This is new guidance that just came out last week. It was just kind of like, what is this, basically? When and who would be classified into these zones? So a lot of questions right now. We don't know, but basically, it's kind of up to the governor. If he sees a cluster in your area, he could pick any of these different zones and classify you as that, and then you would be responsible for whatever is in those zones. Now, the concern about like the yellow zone is that what he's basically saying is that we would have to force staff and students to go and be tested for COVID-19. We can't do that. We don't have the right to do that. We can ask people to do that and try to help them and support them and point them to certain information. And so here's the thing, if you cannot do that, then the schools have to close, right? And so this is the latest guidance that came out. I can tell you the health department was kind of thrown by it in terms of folks in the field, because they didn't even see the guidance before it came out to the field. So we all have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to keep you up to date with whatever information I get. And this is the latest information that came out just last week that we are trying to learn more about. So as soon as we get more information, I will certainly bring it all back to you all. But again, this is for if clusters begin to develop in our area. This is another thing that might affect whether or not we can or cannot operate our school district. Okay.
So Matthew, in my understanding right now, we're not in a zone, like we're
It's
not.
not considered in a zone as of yet. We are not. But at any moment, depending on the size or growth of a COVID cluster, we could go into the zone. And if we do, this is what happens. And I'm trying to share this with you as soon as possible because we're getting ready to enter into the winter season and we don't know what's going to happen. And all districts basically are trying to make sure we make sense of this and get information out to the public as quickly as we can. Okay.
Mathis, was there any, so I'm looking at the New York Forward website right now, and it looks like just Brooklyn has both red, orange, and yellow. Did they give any criteria of like what's the threshold for entering into the yellow? Is it a percentage of positives or?
Yeah, so, Lisa, there's a lot of guidance, to be quite honest with you, that is coming out to the field that I'm not sure that has been really thought through well at the state level. Typically what would happen is that at the state level, they would kind of talk with their people who are in the field in the health departments, and then they could kind of do a Q&A document and share information out. I would say that it doesn't look like that has occurred in this case. So a good question. Another question that we certainly have questions on, like how will we be designated? Who's going to do it? How will we get the information? How soon will we know that we're in that cluster? We don't know that. Those
Right.
answers. So
Yeah, actually, and I misspoke. Like, so Broome County has along 86 has is in the yellow. So it's not just the city. Okay, just curious.
And we do know right now, a lot of this is happening towards the New York City area. That's where a lot of these concerns are at right now. So hopefully it doesn't make its way to us, but it is one thing that could affect our operations. So I wanted to share it with you all as soon as I got it. Okay. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Matt. All right, board, I wanted to share with you a little bit about our budget calendar. We are now beginning the budget season per our calendar. We are now going to be getting ready to move into doing some work around the budget. So right now on the calendar, it talks about meeting with budget builders to review the current budget that they have and then plans for the next school year. Our first meeting is upcoming soon with Dave Cristofelli, our Director of Facilities. And then right after that, we'll be meeting with our additional district administrators, particularly from the Transportation Department, Athletics, Human Resources, and Technology. And as we meet with them, we'll be talking about where you're at right now, what are you projecting that you're going to need in the future, and trying to understand the justification of that. And then our goal is to bring all that information back to the board and walk you through that and make sure that you know what we're learning, what we're finding from those budget builder folks, basically. Go ahead, Matt. And so can we go back? I'm sorry, Matt. Any questions about that with respect to the budget calendar board? Everybody okay? Okay, go ahead, Matt. All right, now in terms of our capital improvement project, I just wanted to provide a couple updates just so that you know. In Fitzhugh and in Kingsford, we've been working through our punch list items, and our skylights have been both put into the schools and were inspected recently. At the middle school, the track was milled. Paving is occurring this week. Additional sod work was also recently completed at the middle school. At Layton Elementary, finishes for locker rooms were worked on. Tile in the main corridor was completed. Fixtures in both locker rooms were installed, and then new windows and doors will all be installed, by the way, this week at Layton. In terms of at the high school, fire alarm systems have been tested. Additional chiller and air handling systems work has been completed. Sound panels were installed for band and practice rooms, and then storefront items were delivered for main lobby entrances. Fixtures for locker rooms and painting was also recently completed at the high school. With respect to the concession building and stadium, roofing work and side panels were worked on last week, and more work is occurring on that this week. And the parking lot asphalt work and paving around the stadium is continuing to be worked on throughout this week, actually, and next week. Part for this project was done last week. My apologies for that. That's written there, but it was done actually last week. Okay, go right ahead. Here's some pictures from the work that's been done. You can see the work out at the stadium. the framing for the roofing work there for our locker rooms and concession stands. Go ahead, keep going. Here's some of the groundwork, some of the concrete being poured around those areas. Go ahead, Matt. More pictures there on that. Okay. Here is again some sidewalks being laid, and then these are our 2 ticket boxes that are now they're working to install those boxes. Go ahead. Some more work on framing. Here's some of the fencing that has been completed and the groundwork, the grounds that have been worked on as well around around the stadium. Some work near the actual board, the sign board there. And then this is some work that's happening along near the theater. You can see some of the ceiling stuff is kind of being put in, and the team is working around that theater now. Okay, you want to go back there for just a moment, Matt? All right, board, any questions around the capital improvement project?
Sorry, Matt, I have a question. It's all COVID all the time. With that, actually, I'm curious now with the air handling system in the high school, do we have a way of knowing, and I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but you know, there are like how often the air turns over connected to the ratio of how many people are in a room at a time. I don't expect you to know any of that right now, but would we be able to get that information, like what the capacity of that air handling system is, so that we'll be able to really figure out how many people should be in a room at a time?
Sure, we can certainly, I can grab that information and bring that back at the next meeting. Nancy, would you have any thoughts on that right now, initial thoughts? But I can certainly bring that information back.
I don't. I would have to actually reach out to King & King and the engineers to get that information.
Sure. I can put that on for our next meetings report, if that would be okay, Lisa? Okay. All right. Great. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Matt. All right. In terms of the athletic director, I'm sorry, was there a question, Jim?
Pam had a question.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't see her. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would have asked at the end anyway. I have them written down. I'm thinking beyond COVID because, you know, my glass is always half full. The track, you mentioned the track out at the middle school. I'm curious because I can't recall in the capital project. Will the middle school also have a press box?
I don't believe so. I don't remember seeing anything about a press box in the plans. And I see Tom shaking his head and Nancy also shaking their head saying, no, that is not a part of the project.
Just curious. And will there be a timing system? Will we get a timing system there?
A timing system?
Yeah, for track, cross country running, you know, that's where the varsity track and that's where varsity cross country is. Will there be means for a timing system there?
I don't recall that also being in the actual project. I can look to see if it is in there, but I don't recall off the top of my head that I saw anything about a timing system. Nancy or Tom? I see Tom shaking his head, but I don't recall seeing that. Nancy?
It is not in there. We had the question sent to King & King today. There is no scoreboard or timing system in this project for the middle school.
Okay. So we need to maybe find a grant writer then, because if our varsity sports are held there, they should have a complete complex, I would think. But okay, thank you.
Or that may be something, Pam, for a future project, right?
That's right. There you go. Or a grant or a donation. You never know.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Awesome. Any other questions there? I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So we do have one thing I wanted to share with the board tonight, and that is around our athletic director space. Just as an update. So the athletic director's office space is the former space as a part of this project is now used as a band practice room. That area has actually already gone under renovation, and that space is now being used for those practice rooms that are now being fully taken care of. So the district did decide late last year over the summer to change the location of the AD's office from its original layout to a couple of things. First, what was actually a part of the plan was that they were going to have the athletic director's office in the Layton area, the elementary principals area. And Nancy, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't here, so I want to make sure I'm getting this correctly. So okay, so the goal was to try to put the athletic director's office there, and also try to do some storage and there, and also house their secretary in that main office. So if you kind of go into that space, you can see it's a nice space, but it really doesn't have the ability, and they found that it didn't have the ability to kind of really secure all of the needs and take care of all the needs that they would have in that space. And also, when they kind of did some bidding out for the work, so let's go back to just kind of put all of that in there in terms of relocate the person there or reconfigure the space. It was going to cost $154,000 to kind of do that, is what the estimated costs were. It was going to be an alternate to try to really accommodate that athletic director. But after kind of seeing the price and also figuring out that it really wasn't going to meet the needs, and those needs were housing the athletic director, housing the athletic director's secretary, having a space for equipment, and a meeting space for whenever you need to get together for your folks. So when they figured out the space really wasn't going to work, and the price was $54K, basically what happened was, there was a pause for a moment, and they kind of said, hey, can we go out and secure some additional bids for the space to see if we can get something a little bit less? We did get some bids finally back, and the bids are going to cost $117,000, which is less than the 154. It's $38,000, but it is a change from the original plan, which means it would need to come from the contingency budget. Nancy, do you want to kind of go over any other things that maybe I left out here? Maybe.
No, I think that you've covered it all.
Okay. All right. You can go to the next slide there, Matt. So this, there was. On the left hand of the screen, you can actually see the plans that were kind of put together. The space that they'd like to go in was used previously as an OT-PT kind of place in Layton. It's right at the front door area, so people can kind of go right there into the athletic director's office without having to go throughout the entire building. It's close to the locker room space, the gym space, out near the fields, and actually it is a good space. So this is one picture. Go ahead, Matt, to the next pictures, please, and slides. You will see some of the other slides here. So the first picture on the left kind of deals with the front area, which can be used as a space for the reception area. Towards the back, they can put like a little small office in for the athletic director. And there's also storage in the back that they could kind of put, and store any of the athletic supplies or equipment or materials that they might need. Go ahead, Matt. Here's some other pictures and different angles. Okay, go ahead, all right? And so in terms of, again, the alternate, so for alterations, interior alterations, the cost from the original bid alternate was at about $41,000. And then they didn't have anything in terms of windows. The original bid was back at the main office again. They weren't putting any extra windows in there. There was some mechanical work that needed to be done at $55,000, and then electrical data work at $58,000, which brought it to $154,000. So now that there's a change that's occurred, the costs are less. So under the change order thing there, aisle there, you will see for the interior alterations, it was $36,000 for interior work. And then the exterior windows, that space doesn't have any windows to kind of look out of. And the goal was to try to be able to see what's happening on the fields, if something is occurring, and just to have some windows in the office there. To put the windows in, it's about $19,000 there, just over $19,000. The mechanical work that would need to be done, doing some work around the air ducts and whatever else have not, is about $39,000. And then there's some electrical data pieces that would need to be put in. So you have to do the wiring for the drops for all of the internet kinds of things, and electrical work that would need to be done as well. There's some lighting and whatever that has to be done as well. And that's about another $21,000. So the total amount is again less than the 154. It's at 116,606. That's $38,000 less than the first alternate bid. Go ahead, Matt, to the next screen. Okay, so with that said, the one thing that I wanted to make sure, the reason why I brought this to all of you is because I'm not sure, as we were working with our capital construction committee, it came to my attention that some of you may not be aware of some of the things that have happened. So I wanted to make sure we came and shared all of this with you and shared it with the public too, so they know what we're doing, basically. But there is, in order to cover for this, we would need to go into our contingency. We do have a contingency budget that's about $500,000. As of right now, we are about 15% of the, just over 15% of the contingency has been used. If we did take this out of the contingency, then that would take you up to about 23% of your contingency budget to be able to cover, just over 23%, to be able to cover the cost of this athletic director's office. So with that said, that's what's needed, that's what's happened. And I just wanted to share with the board and get your feedback before moving forward. I really felt it was important to share this with you all.
Can I just, I'm thrilled that for one, that it's coming in less than the original cost. And also, I think that's a brilliant spot for it. The other spot never made sense to me. Logistically, this one makes so much more sense. So I'm really happy to see it, and especially because it's going to be more cost effective.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my concern isn't of that. It's just looking at, first of all, Mathis, I think the numbers are wrong in terms of the contingency budget. This on its own is about 23% of the contingency budget. Added to the 15, we'd be about 38% of the contingency budget, because at 117,000 out of 500,000, we're about 20, I think around 23%. So we.
Thanks for that clarification. My apology. Thank you.
Right. With also about 20% of the project still left to be completed, and 40% approximately, or 30% still to be billed to us. But my concern was it won't necessarily be a savings per se, in the sense that this was not a part of the original plan, correct? And it was an item of the original plan, was it?
Nancy, you want to talk on that first?
It was billed, it was bid as an alternate, but this alternate was not accepted, so you're right.
Okay, so we would not be, so I guess what I'm saying, we were moving ahead on it before it ever came before the facilities committee, and I know things had changed in terms of approval on that, but we're making the adjustment, but it is going to cost us that $116,000, and it will have to come from somewhere. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
So did the facilities committee approve it?
No, we couldn't approve it because it exceeded the $50,000 that we were allowed to approve. But my concern was that I didn't know about it relative to when we made the move over there. In my mind, I remember, Nancy, originally that where the original location was. I didn't know we had gone over to this new location, or that this whole thing was an additional cost as opposed to a part of the original budget, but it wasn't accepted. So,
so just to clarify, at the last facilities meeting, this was brought up, and we wanted to share what that it came up from the facilities group, and we shared it with everybody, but we wanted to make sure we brought it to all of you all, because we really felt that you all needed to know what was going on, that you were in the loop as to what was happening before we kind of went ahead out there and did anything. This is a pretty costly project, so we wanted to share it with everybody. And just to kind of go back, so in terms of the getting approval, so each of those things that we kind of showed you, the mechanical work, the electrical work, all of those actually are separate projects, so they're actually under the amount of I think the $50,000 threshold. So they would, typically you wouldn't have to come back to the board, but we felt it was important to come back, because I wanted to make sure, when Tom shared that some of you may not know this, and we have new board members, I wanted to make sure that you did know it, and really try to correct the issue with respect to communication around this. I wanted to make sure we communicated it out. Okay, go ahead.
But our communication's coming rather late. And this was part of a project that wasn't approved. So, I'm gonna talk about the big animal in the room here. It's an elephant, and I feel like this was snuck in the back door. You knew I would not be quiet. I feel like this was snuck in the back door. And if I feel like that, then there's going to be a lot of other people that are feeling like that.
So I am not.
If this was part of a budget, this was prior to you here. This was part of the project that went in front of the voters. Very specific details in that project. And the voters approved this one, not the one with the AD's office in it. But now you're bringing to us, and it appears like after his work already been done, I just feel that this was slid right underneath us, and I honestly, I don't like it.
Right. So Pam, first of all, work has not been done. I hear your concern, right? So I like to operate very openly and very transparently, which is why we're here tonight to talk this through, right? And let me just go back. So there were some original plans with respect to the athletic director's office. The plan was that it was going to move, right, from one place to another place, because the place that it was, they had some concerns about it being over where the band area was in the high school. So they were going to move it from there because they needed more space for the bands. Now, they had a place that they were going to put it at, but there was going to be a cost for it. The cost was more than actually what they thought the cost was going to be. And so rather than go with what was expected to be done, which was higher, and it was going to be an alternate, they kind of decided to go back and try to find a better plan for it. I hear you loud and clear. And, you know, so I thank you for that feedback, and we will use that feedback as an opportunity for growth. Great. Jim, you had a concern, or you wanted to say something?
No, just, so actually there's an opening question, I guess, because I was not involved with the previous one. I'll first make a statement. I'm glad that Tom and Pam have spoken on the fact that this is something that was not part of the original. You know, it's something that has been brought in after the fact, after it was voted on, because I do remember when this capital project was originally voted on, Mr. Foley, our former board clerk or district clerk, very specifically spoke to the fact that now that this is passed, it's up to this board and future boards to be stewards of the project. And I really took to heart what Mr. Foley had written in a piece, because it really made a lot of sense to me that it's not once you get something passed, it's that this is a living thing. And as the project develops over the course, as long as this was going to take, things are going to come up. And so he really cautioned us to make sure that the board were stewards of the project as we went through. So I think it's important to understand that this is an add-on. So I guess I could kind of have two questions / comments. One is to make sure that this project as a whole, even if you can break it into pieces, parts, less than $50,000, I do think given the nature that this is really a package project, that the board should be considering, deliberating on, and be treating this as a change order. So that if this does move forward, I do think we need to act upon it as a group. The other question I have, the question, that was a comment. The question I have is, what about using some of the administrative offices that are in Layton right now? I mean, there's an administrative suite in there. And I don't know it as well as everybody else, but it seems to me as an athletic director being part of the administration, that would be a logical place to have some office space. You may not be able to store all of the athletic supplies as a big area might, but it does make sense administrators who are district-wide being with other administrators that are district-wide. So I was just wondering if that was ever given consideration.
I would say yes. So I do know that there was a walkthrough that was done. I've actually been through the building. I would say to you, the space that they have chosen is actually a top-notch space. It is close right to the front door. It has all the storage that you would need. The office, the one place that they were looking at was in the elementary office, and it would be very tight to do that. During the day when there's a full elementary program coming in, people will be coming back in and out, you know, during the day after hours to kind of get whatever it is that they would need. So that space, I think it would become too busy. Excuse me, hang on for a moment. One moment, board, turn the light on. Oh, let's get that. Oh boy, this is just joyful with the lights. I would say that the space would be too tight. The office where they were going to put it at, and there are no additional offices that are there that would be able to meet the needs, I feel, in the building. Again, to have a space for storage, to have a space where there's a lot of athletic equipment and stuff that kind of needs to kind of be in a certain secured zone, to have a space to meet with parents and as they're trying to sign kids up and do things, a place for the secretary and the director. I honestly feel that this space that we have right now would meet the needs. Right? I truly do. And I think if I had started this work, I would actually recommend that space as well. I think one of the issues here that's clear is we want to do a better job at communicating this in advance to the board. And so with that said, we can work on that. But my recommendation would be still that really is the best space. I really think putting it in that elementary administrative space, it would be way too much traffic and way too much and way too tight of a space for all of the additional supports and things that would be needed there in the elementary office. I just think it'd be too much.
I agree with you, Mathis. Like you said, you're thinking on where it should be. That's why I said it never made sense to me putting it in the back of that office. And I do understand Pam's frustration, because when they started moving the 80s office last spring or whatever, I just assumed that it was part of the original budgeted costs. I didn't know that until just the last few days that it wasn't. So that is a very frustrating part of it, that was not thought of. And again, I mean, like Pam said, that's no reflection to you, of course, because you weren't even here. So.
So,
I'm so sorry. And I just have to piggyback to Kathleen. I spent a lot of years in Layton Elementary as an adult, but I can't think of a better spot for it. And I don't dispute that is probably one spot for the AD's office. It just was frustrating the way it's come to us. And I guess it's even more frustrating to find out that you could have pieced it out and each component, like you said to Tom, and we wouldn't have known about it. So that's troubling to me also.
No, I would say I wouldn't have pieced it out. That would not have been the plan. We would come back and talk about that. I wouldn't have done that. But with that said, board, my recommendation is certainly, if at all possible, I would go with this plan. I think we really do need a top-notch athletic director's office. I think that we could do a good job there. And if the board needs a little time to think it through, certainly we can do that. But we do have the folks here. They can get going on the work that needs to be done. But if you'd like time to think it through, we could certainly come back at the next meeting if you'd like and just make sure we answer any other questions you might have. I understand that you're just kind of getting this information. So sometimes you need to kind of think through that. But I would say the plan and the scope of what they're trying to do, I think it's the right plan. And we can certainly, again, in the future, well received in terms of your message, we will work on that.
Do we have to approve this by formal resolution?
So it technically is not, because each piece is under the 50,000. You don't have to do that. We can just go ahead and do that if you're okay with that. If you want to come back and do a resolution, you can. But because, again, it doesn't meet those thresholds, we just need to make sure that the board is okay, and then we can go ahead and get going on the work.
But we wouldn't be doing all those pieces if it wasn't for this one entire project. So I think it isn't that there's pieces, it's that it is one lump sum. And then just to clarify too, Rhonda currently has no office, correct?
That is correct. She's out of an office space. So she's kind of here and there all over the district because her space has now been renovated and made into a music band practice rooms. That's what her space is now. So she has no place to be at right now, technically. So we're using the boardroom. She's been in my office a couple of times. She's all over right now. So we do need a space for her.
So there really isn't a decision to be made. It doesn't sound like.
Well, I mean, we can figure out something. We've been working it right now if you need time to think this through. Right?
Go ahead, Jim.
So, and that's kind of the frustration that I'm sharing with Pam at the moment is the idea of, so you took away the AD's office and there wasn't a viable solution other than this one, so it's a de facto, and that is frustrating to me as well. I would also say it's my hope, and I'm glad that you've done this, Mathis, and thank you very much. This is not a pieces parts that falls below. In all reality, this is a project that is a sum of pieces together that meets the threshold that the board is asked that we be consulted on. And so I'm very glad that you did that. And I would hope that in all future aspects, it's never a thought of pieces parts. It's the thought of what is the project as a whole, because otherwise it's just book moving. It's just shuffling numbers to make it the way you want it. And I'm glad that you're not doing that. So thank you very much. So, at least me personally, having only heard of this now, I would like to hear some more about it. And I apologize if it puts anything back, but that's just my own personal opinion. Is I like to gather information before making decisions.
Do we have the time to be able to say, let's do that, gather some information and make it a formal resolution for our next meeting that we can vote on. And in that time too, Facilities Committee can bring the full board a recommendation as well, based on information they've received.
Sure. Do we have the time? Absolutely. We can make the time. We'll make it happen. And if you can tell me specifically, you don't have to do it tonight, but what information you like, we will bring that back to you at the next board meeting and make sure that that is on the agenda in addition to a resolution. So yes, we can make the time to make this happen. We'll get it done. Okay.
So if you're asking questions, I do have one. If the board thought that this was not a project that they were comfortable with, thinking about that, this is 23% of a contingency budget. We still have 40% billing out, if I remember what Tom said correctly. There are still things that we don't know final costs of, right? There may things that come up that we don't know the total cost of. That this is a large amount of money. It's like 1/4 of our contingency just on the AD suite. And I don't mean to say just as a negative way, but it's one aspect of a very big project. So I guess my question would be, if the Facilities Committee and you, Mathis, and your group could talk about is, if the board thought that this was not something they were comfortable with, what would be your plan B or your plan C? So that we can understand, if we turn this down, what are we going to be able to do? Because we know the AD needs something, right? And they need something that is workable. So if not this, what would be plan A? What would be plan B or plan C?
All right, we can bring that back at the next meeting. That's fine. Sure. We can do that.
Mathis?
Sure.
The one thing that I wanted to say too, Jim, and we'd asked for it, and with the Facilities Committee, and we get it about once a month from King and King, is a running tally, so we know exactly where we are. We get every meeting, we get an approximation in terms of the numbers of contingency used, allowance used, where we are for billing, where we are for completion of project. So I would love to have that, and we can get that from King and King, the current update to where we are exactly, and looking at what remains to be billed and what remains to be completed as far as the portion goes. But I'd like to even look, in our consideration is looking down into the next phases, and if there's something that we say, okay, we can take it from there, or we can do something else. We don't have to short it from here, but we can just redesign for that. And my biggest concern on this whole thing is that we never affect anything relative to the education portion. But so we look to other areas in the future contingencies or future designs where we can change it to make this work.
Mathis, could you send us those slides, and then maybe that would be helpful too, like Jim is asking for the other information, those slides that had the breakdown of what the costs were for this whole thing that we're talking about.
Sure, I will do that. Sure. All the information I can gather by Friday, I'll gather. And also, prior to the board meeting, we'll get more information together. And we'll be ready for that presentation for you all in the next board meeting. And if there are additional questions that maybe, because I know you're just hearing about this tonight, so if there are additional questions that you might have, you will share those with me prior to our board meeting. We'll answer those for you as well. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions, board, or comments? All right. Okay.
Okay.
Can you go ahead to the next slide, please, Matt? All right. I think I'm all set. Thank you, board.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting of October 6, 2020, September 29th, 2020, and September 18th, 2020, along with the special education report of October 2020. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda would be personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Hello, everyone. For A, we have a support staff retirement date amendment. We had already brought Andy Germain's retirement to you at the last meeting or the meeting before that, and he has since amended his retirement date to October 30th, 2020. B, we have a professional staff recommendation, a regular substitute appointment for a TA at Riley, Lauren Bosshart. And then C, D, and E are extra compensatory position recommendations for Riley, Fitzhugh Park, and Minetto. Do you have any questions on A through E?
A through E, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a
Move
motion.
it.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
I just have a question. You're doing, which one are you doing? Just A?
A through E.
Okay, the FPS ones, the Leader in Me, is that all grant or is that out of general budget?
The first 3 Leader in Me curriculum coordinators are from the Leader in Me grant. And then the Leader in Me instructors and after-school academic support are listed as a federal grant, but Carrie, correct me if that's not accurate.
The after-school academic supports are out of federal, but not the Leader in Me. That should all be under the.
That's what I was thinking. That should all be listed under the Leader in Me grant up above. Yeah.
Correct.
So the grant number is correct under Leader in Me coordinators, and it should be inclusive of the Leader in Me instructors. But then the after-school academic support is the FT01 budget code listed right above that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then we have our support staff recommendations. F, Candace Clavelli, a leave of absence from 10/13 to 11/13. G, probationary appointments. We have both a group of folks who were provisionally appointed and we got their exam results back from the civil service world. Congratulations to those who have passed their exam and then they move on to their probationary period. And we have 2 regular probationary appointments, our food service helper and our school bus driver. H is a provisional appointment, Angela Miller, the typist. She's actually the new selection for Rhonda Bullard in athletics because Kim Patrick had come over to move to the Ed Center in special programs. And then we have I, our substitute and temporary employees. Do you have any questions on F through I?
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a quick question, and it was just for my own edification. How do you, the term for probation is to 12 weeks. What's the normal term? And not that I've just for my own knowledge.
Sure. We can appoint to a probationary position up to 26 weeks.
Okay.
And depending on whether folks are serving brand new to us or they had already been appointed and served a period of time provisionally, we adjust their probationary term accordingly.
And minimal is at 12 weeks.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is finance with Nancy Squires.
I only have one item on the agenda tonight, which is a budget transfer from music supplies to BOCE services, and this is to purchase 500 student licenses for the Smart Music Standards student subscription program.
Motion?
Make the motion?
Second?
I can second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the student representative discussion. Zeta?
Hi, sure. Expanding on some of the concerns that were heard earlier by from community members and members of the board. A lot of my peers and myself included, there's no denying that we're in the thick of it now. We just came up on 5 weeks for schooling, and it's definitely difficult. I also want to mention, however, that our teachers have been trying their very best to be as accessible as possible. And, they're staying extra hours. They have many office hours. And if any student is feeling that they're having trouble with schoolwork, they're definitely an amazing resource, and they're really trying their best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is items from the board. Would any board members have any items tonight? Yeah.
Yes, in the public comment, there was someone that had mentioned the Wednesday workload. I've heard a couple of comments that it's tough for them. They have to get it done by, is it 2 so that the attendance can get in, but the load is somewhat heavy. And yeah, Wednesday ends up being a very stressful day for some of those kids. Also, I think home and schools may have some questions about school pictures. Has there been any kind of creative ideas for that?
I've not heard yet about school pictures, but let me reach out to the principals. I'll find out. I actually have a home and schools meeting, I believe, tomorrow night with many of those folks from home and schools in terms of their leaders. So I will reach out and try to connect with that and talk with them a little bit through that. With respect to issues on Wednesdays or any day of the week, what I would really encourage our parents and students to do is to reach out first to the teacher, let them know that the load may be a challenge or there may be some concern. If they don't find that that's met with success or that concern is not being resolved, I would encourage people to reach out to the building principal, right? Folks who are as closest to the issue, and then I'm here, our executive directors are here, and we can certainly work through any issue that people are having online. So I would certainly encourage people to do that, and we will continue to work on any concerns. I think we have the name of the person that came off of the actual portal, so I can have someone reach out to that particular person first thing tomorrow for sure.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I have an item, unless yours had something to do with this, Heather. This is something different.
No, mine was something different too.
Okay. I got a phone call from a community member today who went to pay their taxes online. There was no mention of a surcharge for the tax amount and ended up being charged $87 in addition to what the tax amount was. Has that been, if there's going to be a surcharge, there should at least be some kind of notification on our website saying, if you choose to pay online, you're going to have a surcharge of such and such an amount. Are you aware of that? And is there anything being done about that? I mean, the school district, if you've got 1,000 people paying their taxes online, we shouldn't incur the cost of that. However, there should be some kind of a notification so that people aren't paying an extra $87 for their tax bill.
So I will check into that concern. I think, if memories, this is the first time I've heard that concern, Kathleen. So I'm not aware of that, but I will certainly check into the concern. Nancy, we can certainly look into that for sure tomorrow, and I can get back to the board about that. I believe when we had the first meeting where this came up, there was some discussion about some of the surcharges being on the actual taxpayer themselves. I can remember something off the top of my head. I don't recall it all. I'd have to go back to the meeting and watch our video when we brought this up. Nancy, can you talk a little bit about this at all? But we will research this tomorrow. And Kathleen, if you can give me the community member's name, I will certainly reach out to that person as well to share. We'll have someone reach out to her. Nancy?
A lot of the taxpayers that have paid online, this is the second year that we've done it. The district does not collect any of those surcharges. That goes to the company that is processing the credit card application. So I just wanted to put that out there. And we have notified last year that there was a surcharge. If anybody calls the tax office, they are notified that there is a surcharge. But to your point, Kathleen, I'm not sure if we've posted it online. I'll look at that.
Yeah. And if we haven't, we will post it online so that the entire community knows. We can certainly put that information out there right away.
Thank you, because
Okay.
that's what the taxpayers, that's what the community member said, was just if they'd known that, then they would have written a check instead and sent it in that way. So she did call the tax collector's office and she talked to her about it. So it was taken care of. But just for future, for anybody else paying, that's what my concern was, that they weren't aware that they were being charged this.
We will put a notice up tomorrow so that folks see it online tomorrow. Okay.
But $87 seems like a pretty hefty surcharge, especially relative to the cost of the taxes. So I'm just wondering too, do we have to use this company? I mean, that seems really, really expensive.
Most companies, when you do stuff online, they'll charge you like 2 or 3%, and it kind of really depends upon how much your tax bill is. Actually, that's pretty standard. I don't know exactly, Nancy, some of the parameters. Do you know how much they charge percentage-wise? But most do that.
For some reason, I have 3.5% in my head, but I can confirm that tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, Tom.
I would just want to say, in most businesses, when you use your credit card, the business is charged that, and they incur that cost. In this case, because we're a public entity, we don't incur the cost, but it has to come out someplace. So the credit card user uses that, and it is a percentage of the whole amount being charged. Because I think
that's if you use a credit card. I mean, don't you have the option to put in a checking account number or something like that? I mean, you don't have to use it.
Right. There's other options that you can do instead of that. I think, yeah, you can drop it off. You can come in. We still have in-person drop off. You can put it in as a check. There's other things you can do. However, I think Kathleen's point is a good one. We want people to know, hey, if you're going to do this way, it's going to cost you in the end, basically, right? You're going to have some cost to it. So we can certainly correct that for sure. We can do that. Did we answer your question, Heather and Kathleen? I hope.
Well, this is like shocking to me. Tom, I know what you're talking about because we ran a business and we, obviously did a credit card, accepted credit cards because people actually will have you'll have more people paying their taxes if it's an easier process. But if they're having to pay $90 to use that process, that'll work against us, significantly. So my question really was, is there an alternative to using a credit card online? Like, Nancy, can I put in my checking account number online and still pay the taxes without having a surcharge?
No, we don't have any direct debit capability to get the money from your bank account. So it would have to be a check.
That might be something that we could look into an e-check processing for the future as well. And that way it would come without the incurred costs if you could process it that way. That might be something we look at.
So we can definitely investigate that for sure. Absolutely, we can. We'll investigate that right away. Okay. We can investigate that. We can do that.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
I wanted to thank Zeta for once again, we've had student representatives in the past, and they've, been a part of, sitting around a table, and, you are so long suffering sitting through these Zoom meetings without being in person, and we really appreciate your presence there, and actually, once again, being a voice of people of the students who are actually, in the field, right? Getting the education that we're putting out. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to thank the folks that used the portal. I actually was really appreciative of getting a wide range of voices. It's not something we're used to in person for a variety of reasons. I think Callan brought up the timing of the meetings isn't always beneficial for people who work or whatever, but I think the fact that we have this portal offers people a chance to have their voices heard, even if the meetings aren't convenient for them. So I appreciate the effort that went forth putting that together, and for people using it. I hope more people use it.
Can I ask a question regarding that, though? In going forward, how we will deal with that? There was, outside of statements, there were questions, and how will we respond to those? Just in terms of moving forward, since this was our first time, who's going to make sure that we respond to those questions?
Mathis, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Sure.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the things that would certainly are things that we would need to answer in terms of the district. We can certainly reach out to those parents if okay with the board. We can put a letter together. We can contact people by phone to make sure that they know that if there's a question like something going on with the Wednesday or whatever else have you, that our goal is to respond. So we can certainly do those things. And then I'm thinking the things that the board might, that are specifically board related, that the board, whether it's the president or whomever, would like to reach out, that would be good for the board to do that. Would that be okay with the board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great. And I'll keep a file of anything that I have. So if the board wishes to see, we can share it at any time. No problem.
Mathis, do you have any idea when we'll be able to meet, as a board and get off of Zoom?
So that really is, I guess, something that the board would have to kind of think through and talk through. There are certainly things that I would say the board needs to kind of think about. You need to think about how many people you want to have in your space. Where do you want to meet at? There are gathering concerns. As we kind of just talked about today. You need to think a little bit about how do you want to screen people when they come in, because we would need to do, as we do in all of our buildings, your temperature checks, all those safety things you would need to kind of think through. So I think that answer is really kind of going to be up to the board to think about and deliberate on and kind of work through. But there are things I would say that you would kind of truly need to think about. And then if there are people who, once you reach that maximum of meeting, what do you do with those people who can't come in, who would like to come to the public meeting? So I think that's something that the board would need to think about as a whole.
So I just kind of a quick question or a thought, kind of piggybacking on what we've just been talking about with the public not being able to be at the meetings. As you said, once you let some of the public in, you theoretically let all the public in. So how many people is that, right? So I was thinking about past meetings that I've been to and thinking about how the board's been open to having some people in the audience being able to share when necessary. So there's different constituencies that are able to be heard from. And now that we're into week 6 of the semester, or week 6 of the quarter, I think it would be interesting if they want to hear from some of the unions. We have unions that are actively involved, and I know they go to meetings. I've heard them talk at meetings. And just as an individual board member, and I don't know how the other board members feel because we haven't talked about this till now, but, to invite people, if they're interested, to come and share about, what they think about the beginning of the school year. I think it's an important voice to hear from. Again, if I'm in the minority, that's fine. But, something I thought about when listening to this conversation. Silence.
I can hear Mathis.
Well, Mathis, aren't you? I mean, you're in constant contact with the
I am.
union.
I
You
am.
meet with them on a regular basis. So, I mean, Jim's probably not aware of it just because
Right.
he's still a newbie. But
Yes. So generally, the procedure, the way that it works, because the board, I work generally with the unions. Basically, that's the work that we do. Generally, I meet with them on a monthly basis. Any of the unions who want to meet with me can come and meet any other time. And if there are concerns, I generally pass those concerns on to the board and share that information with the board. So that's generally the way that is done. That generally doesn't happen that way in public session, Jim. I don't know any Board of Education that operates in that way. Now, board members are always, free to talk to whomever, because that's just the way it works, right? We know board members are going to see union members, staff members in stores and grocery stores, everything like that. But generally in a school board meeting, that generally isn't the way it's done. I meet with the staff, with those collective bargaining units once a month. And then if there are any concerns or things that need to be shared, I come right back and share openly and transparently with the board. So for example, I've been meeting ongoing with OCTA, with the AAP group. I've already had a meeting with I've had actually 2 meetings with the CSEA group. All of the unions I've actually sat down with at least one time to talk. And just tomorrow, actually, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe tomorrow I have a full-scale committee with OCTA. Am I correct, Karen? I believe it is.
I don't believe tomorrow. I believe that's Thursday.
Thursday, excuse me. And that is all of the different building presidents, if I remember correctly, from OCTA, Karen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Faculty liaison is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. I thought it was right. You should know that we meet consistently and on a regular basis whenever something comes up. And our first meeting tomorrow would be to kind of set parameters for the year and meeting schedules. But there's not a week that's gone by that certainly I haven't met with our union folks. And certainly I can share with the board any information that you'd like to have shared.
Sure, and I'm not trying to say that, we should not go around our normal action. That's not what I'm thinking. Again, I'm thinking about being an audience member in former board meetings and seeing the union reps there and occasionally them talking to the board about certain things if the topic is pertinent, and having that ability to have conversation. And because that, the nature where we're at right now, if they wanted to, I just thought it'd be nice to hear from them directly. But if, I understand there may be different protocols. I don't mean to step on any toes.
Okay. Any other items from the board? Next on the agenda is an executive session that the Board of Education moved to the executive session for the purpose to discuss the work performance of a particular staff member. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. If you would move back to your executive session invite that you received from me, that is still open. Oh, Dr. Calvin, in the board, will there be a reason for a vote after the meeting?
No.
Yes.
A
There
vote?
would be. Yes, there is actually a vote that would have to occur after that. Yes, there would be. Yes, there would be.
Okay. And then you will move back to this invite. Okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
2nd at 7:38.
Could I have a motion to return to regular session?
I'll move it that.
Pam, a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Next, I would ask for a motion to amend the agenda to add a personnel item.
Move
I'll
it.
move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. And I will turn it over to Heidi Sweeney for the personnel item.
Okay. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Dr. Calvin, the Board of Education hereby approves of the last chance agreement for a particular employee as discussed in the executive session immediately preceding this resolution, and fully authorizes the superintendent of schools to exercise the authority vested in him by virtue of said agreement.
Could I
Move
have
it.
a motion?
Move it.
Kathleen, second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. At this time, if I could have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. You may adjourn.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Karen.
Everyone.
Bye.
You.